Hey, I'm Lisa Faye, and today I'm going to show you how you can make this really easy moss-covered picture frame. This is really a neat decor addition, I think. I don't have a picture in here right now, I just have this plain white paper, but this was really simple, inexpensive, easy to make, pretty quick. And I hope that you enjoy this. Please check out my other videos where I've covered other things in moss. I have really enjoyed this whole moss covering crafting experience. I just really love the aesthetic of it, and it's been a lot of fun to work with as well. Have you ever covered anything in moss, or would you cover something in moss? Please let me know in the comments. I'll put links in the description for all of the things you'll need for this project. And I'll also link to another video I did where I covered picture frames with fabric, and that was a really fun DIY as well, so please check that out. This is the Super Moss sheet I'm working with. It is not loose moss, it is in a sheet. I'm also using a frame from Michael's. It was cheaper there than at the Dollar Tree. And my glue gun. And my favorite pair of scissors. They don't hurt my hands and they don't give me blisters, so that's a plus. So I am just taking the wooden frame out of its packaging and removing the insert. There was no glass in this one, and you can use any frame you want for this project. Here's what the moss sheet looks like. I like to take this tissue backing off of it, and there's just this grid-like kind of mesh fabric on the back. So here I am making sure that I can comfortably wrap the moss all the way around to the back of the frame, and then cutting it using the grid lines on the backing fabric as kind of a guide to make straight lines. So I just cut it, made sure that I would have enough of the moss sheet to comfortably wrap it all the way around to cover the sides and onto the back of the frame. So I'm just going to start here by cutting out a little notch so that I can stick the little stand in the picture frame. That's what the little holes there are for, so that you can stick a little stick there and prop your frame up on a table. And I like to glue my moss sheet onto whatever I'm gluing it on very gradually so that the hot glue is still hot when I'm working with it, because if it cools down before you have a chance to adhere it to the moss sheet, it's not going to stick. So I like to just go very slowly, very gradually, and just kind of work with the moss and work with the hot glue, and just very slowly, methodically attach a little bit at a time. There's really no need to rush, and even taking my time using this method and just gluing little strips at a time and really working my way along, even going this slow, it still did not take me that long to glue the moss onto the frame. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe less, maybe 5 minutes. I really don't know, but it was such a short period of time that I didn't even really notice. I did go through a couple glue sticks doing this because I tend to go a little bit overboard with the glue. I'd rather have too much glue than too little. And as I'm working, I'm trying to keep things a little bit neat, and I'm pulling away any of the little stringy things that you get when you're using hot glue, just to kind of keep things as neat and tidy as possible. So there we go, we have the entire front of the frame glued onto the moss. Our next step is that we are going to cut out the center portion of the frame. You don't want a whole lot of bulk in the center rim of the frame. You want just enough so that you can cover up that little edge of wood, but you don't want too much bulk, because if you have too much bulk there, it's going to prevent the picture and the backing, and if there's glass on your frame, it's going to prevent all of that from setting in that groove properly. And it was a little bit tricky for me to kind of gauge how much of the moss sheet I wanted to keep in that section. So here I am trying to figure that out, and I wanted to make sure that when I cut it close to the corners, I was going to be able to position it in the corners so it wouldn't be bulky there. I figured I would just cut it enough so that it would just barely cover that little edge there. So I'm just trimming it and trimming it some more, and really trying to keep the lines as clean as possible. It was a little tricky trying to get it clipped in this area. A little bit hard to get in there with the scissors, but I made it work. So now here I am going in on the corners. I did 2 cuts on each corner, and I just kind of pushed that little tiny flap of moss using the handle of a paintbrush and just kind of attached that in the corner first, like a little tab going up. And then I went and did each of the sides, and I had to push it up with the paintbrush at first, then my fingers. It was really tricky because I was trying not to burn myself with the hot glue, and it was very hot. I don't really recommend going in there with your bare fingers because it is a little bit dicey and you probably will burn your fingertips. I know I did. Not badly, but it still was a little uncomfortable. But you know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes when you're crafting. So this was a little bit tricky. If you have like popsicle sticks that you use for crafting, that would probably work as well. What was nice about using the hot glue for this, even if it was uncomfortable and I did kind of burn myself, was that at least it sets up quickly. If I was using like a different adhesive that had to dry or cure, it would have been a lot of holding things in place and it just would not have worked that well. I'm also using little bits and scraps of moss as I'm going to cover up any bare spots. So now I'm going to try to do the corners, and I decided to cut some flaps at the corners here. I didn't want it to be too bulky. I wanted the moss to lay as flat as possible, so I decided to just cut some notches and kind of get rid of some of the bulk. And I started by gluing these little tabs on the corners against the side wall, like that outer rim of the frame. And I figured if I could get that covered first, then I could go up and just neatly do each of the flat portions for the 4 sides. And that turned out to be a pretty good strategy. So once I got those 4 corners glued, I cut off some more of the excess bulk of moss, and then I just went ahead and glued the sides. And also, when I got some extra hot glue that kind of leaked around the edges, I tried to scrape that away before it hardened, just to try to keep things as neat and tidy as possible. So this was really pretty easy. I just tried to kind of go with the flow of the moss, and I figured, you know, if it's a little bit imperfect here or there, the moss itself is a bit on the fluffy side, and it kind of can cover up any little imperfections that you may encounter along the way. So I finished gluing all of the sides down like that. And then this was kind of optional. I don't think you technically have to wrap the moss around the back of the frame. I just kind of thought it made things look nicer, and you know, just having a little bit more of a finished edge. So I just kind of removed a little bit more of the bulk from each of the corners first, and then just to kind of keep it so that when it is on a table, it'll lay flat and it won't be lumpy or bumpy on or askew or sideways or something on the table. So then I glued the 4 corners down again, just wrapped those around. And then I decided to notch out that other side as well, so I have some options on what direction I want the frame to go when it's in use. And then I just glued down all 4 of the sides and cut away any more bulk when I could. I think really you just kind of have to go with the flow and see how it progresses when you're working with it. Overall, it was pretty easy. I don't really have a whole lot else to add. It was pretty easy to work with. And I think just try to stay calm and work slowly with the glue gun and keep trimming, you know? Right here I'm removing some more, and yeah, it worked out pretty nicely. I finished it off with a little extra hot glue, and here we go. Here's our finished frame. Like I said before, you can use any frame you want, but I really liked these wooden frames for about $1 from Michael's. They just had a really good surface area to work with and they were inexpensive, so I highly recommend them. All right, what do you think? Would you do this project? Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and I hope to see you back here again soon. Bye.